Jim Cramer, Mad Money Cramer over on CNBC, pointed this out. This is what he expects, what he sees with respect to travel. You know, the airlines are big industries, big employers, and he doesn't see a snapback for the airlines coming anytime soon because of the lack of corporate travel.
I think it's really important that that part of the equation is not, I don't think it's going to come back very fast. I don't think people want to see you. I think people are much more fearful than Washington makes it sound like. If you can use Zoom or WebEx to get the deal done and everyone else is using WebEx, it means your competition is the same. I think it's more of that when you get there, no one wants to be with you. And I think we have to start understanding, unless everyone wears masks, and there's a unified decision from Washington that everyone must wear masks. I think that travel by corporate travel is just not going to come back the way people think. It's just too dangerous.
So the fear factor is being underestimated. Corporate travel not going to come back. The addition of President Trump suspending H-1B and H-2B visas through the end of the year, some would argue, I would be among them, that is not going to aid the pace of recovery either.
No.
Will another stimulus, is that the order of the day? That seems to be what is being discussed, although those around him of the free market variety, the Steve Moores and the Art Laffers and the Larry Kudlows, have suggested that now is the time for the government to stop spending and get out of the way so the private sector can resume producing. Well, how to make sense of it all? To help us, the aforesaid Steve Moore, economist, Wall Street Journal columnist, and author of Trumponomics, joins us. Steve, help.
Hi, guys. Good morning. By the way, we have right on the subject of what you were talking about, Dan. We have a study coming out this week that is that I've done with Casey Mulligan. He's at the University of Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
You may have had him on your show at one point. He's one of the best labor economists in the country.
Yep.
So I'll give you the sneak preview because I think it's going to get a lot of attention. I think it'll be in the Wall Street Journal in the next few days. That what we find is that if you do there's two competing stimulus plans. One is the payroll tax cut that the aforementioned Steve Forbes and Art Laffer and I and Larry Kudlow and most importantly Donald Trump have been in favor of, which would basically be to suspend the payroll tax for the rest of the year. So you're giving every worker a 7.5% pay raise and every employer a 7.5% cut. We've talked about that on the show in previous weeks. Mm-hmm. And then the other proposal is the one that is in Nancy Pelosi's bill that passed through the House, which would be to extend the unemployment benefits that pay people 4 out of 5 workers more money for not working than working. And so we put those side by side, and here's what we found. That if you do the Trump plan of repealing the payroll tax for the rest of the year, you create about 2.5 to 3 million more jobs than otherwise would happen. That's a lot. That's a lot of jobs, 2.5 to 3 million. If you do the Pelosi plan, what do you think happens, Dan?
You lose jobs and you continue to have double-digit unemployment and you continue to have GDP and cratering.
Yeah, so you got your A in economics today. I know, Amy, you knew the answer to that too.
Of course.
But here's the number, though. Here's the number we came up with, and it's actually a conservative forecast. We believe that if you pass the Pelosi bill and the Senate, which passed the House, and put it into law, you would lose 10 million jobs. 10 million jobs, by the way, is larger than the entire working population of Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana combined. That's how many jobs you would lose if you did the Pelosi plan. So there is a stimulus plan and there's an anti-stimulus plan, and we better get this right.
Well, there doesn't seem to be much chance that the Pelosi plan would pass the Senate, I would hope. But the problem is that there's
you never know the way these Republicans negotiate.
Well,
I think look, if I were the Republicans, I would say not one more day. We should not have these extra unemployment benefits. It's causing big problems. We have 30 million unemployed people today in the United States. And you know what the problem is? You go around the country, you see help wanted signs. Businesses are ready to hire back people, and they can't get them back on the job.
Well, because it's more fruitful for them to be
course.
at home and making more money staying at home. And in fact, there was a TV station in Indianapolis. They went and they found people who told their employers that they were too scared to go back to work because they didn't want to leave their house. And they went and found them, at the beach, at the mall, was fascinating. I mean, it was
Right,
unbelievable.
exactly.
And they're like, you told your employer you were scared to go back, and he said, and then he ran away and got in his car.
Well, they should be honest. They don't want to take a pay cut, and that's
I
not
need to
that's
get
not,
that
that's
story.
rational.
That's a great story. I mean, I had not heard that. Send that to me because we'll put it in our newsletter. But I mean, that's true. And people know how to game the system.
Right.
So Nancy Pelosi says, oh no, people aren't gonna. If your employer offers you a job back, you have to take it. And it turns out, people aren't stupid. They just say, I can't come in back. I'm sick, or I'm worried about my health, and then that is an exemption. And so people will figure that out. But the other point is, that I was just before your show, I was watching Bloomberg on TV, and they're talking. They had this economist saying, "Oh, we need another massive stimulus bill, and Biden's going to be so great because he's going to spend so much money, and it's going to infuse all these dollars in the economy." And again, this goes back to the basic economics 100. You cannot stimulate the economy by having government spend money because you have to take money from someone to give it to somebody. I mean, I say this every week on your show. Why don't these idiot economists that go on these TV shows understand the most basic rule of economics?
It is rather remarkable. We're arguing about whether you can have an economy without an economy. Can we just have government and no private sector?
All we need to do. They keep saying all we need to do is put more money in the hands of consumers. I mean, we could give trillions of dollars to consumers if people aren't producing anything. There's nothing to buy in the economy collapse.
Well, okay. So what is? I mean, the White House has to have a sense from McConnell of what Senate Republicans are willing to do and perhaps willing to concede to get the version of the stimulus. I mean, to get the stimulus, what you were describing, passed, and not to start from the premise of the anti-stimulus to pass something that advances Nancy Pelosi's flag. I mean, is there an understanding of that approach?
Yeah, I think there is. I think that the Republicans do understand that doing anything that would expand and extend those unemployment benefits would be catastrophically bad for the economy. It would mean that there would be no recovery. And by the way, I've become cynical. I have to admit, I think that's what Pelosi isn't that stupid. I think she understands exactly what she's doing. That that wouldn't be such a bad thing if we went into the election and there were 10 million people in the unemployment line that wouldn't otherwise be there. There is an Operation Chaos going on out there, folks, and it is very evident from everything that is going on. And I'll give you another example of this because it really hits the economy. All of these news stories about the second wave of coronavirus are complete nonsense. There are more cases, but if you look, here's the headline. It should be the headline in every newspaper every single day. Death rates from coronavirus from its heights are down 90%. I'm going to say that again. Death rates from coronavirus are down 90%. Why is that, Dan and Amy, not the headline across the country?
Well, because it doesn't fit their narrative. And they also should say that the vast majority of people with positive tests do not become ill enough to need hospitalization.
Exactly.
They're saying the
And
cases, and they're calling them cases, and they're not cases.
Well, that's exactly right. And also, what's happened is that the people who are getting infected by coronavirus are younger people. They're people in their 20s and 30s. Younger people don't get sick from coronavirus. Well, there are some exceptions. If you have other health problems, you can get sick. But this is an old person's problem. It's like worrying about your 28-year-old getting Alzheimer's. I mean, so you're exactly right about that. That there are more cases, but people are not getting more sick from it. And so that is why ultimately you are going to get it. Look, if you test 2 million people, that's the other thing that annoys me so much. Remember, first the left said we have to level the flatten the curve. Remember that was the first. We cannot open the economy to flatten the curve. Then we flatten the curve. Then they say, well, no, we can't open the economy until we have testing, right? Testing. We have to test people before we can go back. So now we have people being tested by the million. Now we're saying, oh, no, people can't go back to work now because we have more cases. I mean, how stupid are these people? Of course, if you're going to test 1 million people, you're going to get. Did they think everyone was going to test negative to the test? And now they're saying we can't. Some of these politicians are saying we can't open the economy until we have a vaccine. Okay, so we're not going to open our economy until 2022. We won't, as Dan just said, we won't have an economy to open up by then.
Have you and your green eye shades boys looked at what this does? This idea of cities, big cities like Chicago and states really across the country, except for the states that never locked down. Allowing businesses to reopen, but at 25 and 50% capacity, what that does to the rate of recovery. I mean, the Fed was predicting we're going to have north of 9% unemployment nationally by year's end. We'll be down to 9%. But it seems to me that that's a rosy scenario for operating at a quarter or half capacity. You're not going to get a quarter or half of the productivity. You're going to get less.
Yeah, I tend to be with you. I mean, I know I'm your rosy optimist on the show every week, but I'm kind of with you, Dan. I think people have really overestimated how, you just had played that clip from Kramer, and I think he's right. I mean, the airline industry isn't going to be back to anywhere normal for another year, 6 months at least. And so, major industries are really hurting. And you're right. How do you run on a restaurant? I bet there are about a lot of people who are listening to the show either work at or own a restaurant. You can't make a profit at 50%.
Well, we have 25% starting Friday.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not worth, turning back on the water and turning on the lights.
Exactly. So that's a big problem. That's why we have to overcome this fear element. And I do think there's this kind of sense of, relatives are like, oh, I can't go out of my house. And it's like, come on, let's get back to some sense of normalcy. We do know a lot more about the disease than we do. And by the way, the 10 states, I know we're running out of time here, so I'll leave you with one other one. The 10 states that have the highest death rates from, as a share of their population. Ready? Mm-hmm. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Illinois, Massachusetts, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Washington State, Rhode Island. What do all those states have in common?
Democrat governors.
Well, actually, I think one exception.
Oh, Massachusetts is Baker.
Massachusetts has a Republican governor. But, so not only did the 10 bluest states, those 10 states have the highest unemployment rates, but they also have the highest death rates. So they say, we tolerate higher unemployment because we're not trying to keep our people safe. Gee, they're doing a great job of it.
Yeah, nice twofer. All right.
And by the way, Pritzker is near the top of that list, folks.
Illinois is always near the top of any list when it comes to being the bad example. You know that. Steve Moore, keep cracking skulls inside the Beltway. Thanks for joining us, Steve. Appreciate it.
And I'll send you that article. All right, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
We're all aware of national dealers that sell gold and silver. But national dealers? It sounds so impersonal and far away. Guess what? Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is a national dealer, and they're right here in our backyard. With Fox Valley Coins close by, you won't have to relinquish your personal information and money through the mail and hope that you receive what you ordered in the next days, weeks, or months. Most of the time at Fox Valley Coins, you just walk